Hello, I'm Mike, founder of Starlit Contracts, where we help you to negotiate and use contracts with confidence. This video is part of our Build the Foundation in Contracts program, and our topic is the contract duration and extensions. Let's look at this topic in summary now. So what are we talking about with contract duration and extensions? Well, the contract duration is the initial term of the contract plus any extensions to it. And how does it work? Well, you can have an extension in a number of different ways. You can have an extension by agreement between the parties. You can have an extension that is automatic, or an extension that's a unilateral decision of one of the parties. If you have an extension by agreement between the parties, it means that before the end of the initial term of the contract, those parties will need to come together and decide, do we want to extend this contract? If they do, then that decision to proceed would often be formalized in a written document. That is an extension by agreement. But an extension, when it is automatic, it's easier to manage on the one hand, because you might decide at the end of a 1-year contract it will extend automatically by another 6 months or another year, unless the parties expressly state, or one of the parties states, I do not want this contract to be extended. The last option is for a unilateral extension of the contract. So it might be, when they start out, that the customer wants the right to instruct the supplier to extend the contract by periods of 6 months. And if that's the case, the supplier is agreeing at the outset of the contract that the customer can do it. Is this something that you should care about? We should really think, do you prefer having the security of a longer term contract, or do you prefer having the flexibility of a shorter one? Finally, it's important for you to keep in mind that it's generally much easier to extend an existing contract rather than entering into a new one. Let's look at a practical example together now. Cost Saving Customer Limited and New Product Supply Limited sign a contract for the supply of a new product that is expected to save customer money. The contract has an initial duration of 6 months with the option to extend by 1-year increments. So what can go right for the customer in this situation? Well, it might be that over the course of that 6-month contract, the customer finds, oh, do you know what? We've not really saved the money that I expected to. With only a 6-month contract, at the end of that, the customer might decide we're not going to extend the contract, and then that's it. The two parties walk away from one another amicably. But what could go wrong for the customer in this situation? Well, let's say the opposite is true, and the customer has saved a huge amount of money due to this innovative product that the supplier had. Well, in that situation, the supplier might say towards the end of the 6 months, look customer, I'm really pleased that we've brought so much value to you over the last 6 months, but if you want to extend this contract, then it's going to be necessary for us to renegotiate the price. If you're not willing to renegotiate the price, then the contract will end at the end of that 6 months, and we will redirect our attention and resources towards other customers who will potentially pay more. Let's look at a sample clause and some key considerations now. And firstly, to the clause, this contract has an initial duration of 6 months from the contract date, or if you're using it, you might refer to the effective date of the contract. So option 1, the contract may be extended by written agreement between the parties. So this means that before the end of that 6-month period, the parties must come together and decide, do we jointly want to extend the contract? And if they do, to put it in writing, or through whatever mechanism they may have agreed in the contract. Option 2. The contract will extend by 1-year increments unless either party notifies the other not later than 6 weeks before the end of the initial duration or of any extension. So this is an automatic extension of the contract, which makes it easier if the parties are thinking, yes, okay, everything's going well, we're looking to have an extension of the contract, then actually they don't need to do anything else. There's no contract administration. However, if the intention is to discontinue a contract, you do not want to have that extension, then you must make sure that you notify the other party of that decision within the notification period that's mentioned. So in this case, you would have to notify the other party prior to 6 weeks before the end of that contract, the initial duration, or of any extension to it. Now let's look at option 3. customer may extend the contract by 1-year increments upon notification to supplier not later than 6 weeks before the end of the initial duration or of any extension. The initial duration plus any extension shall not exceed 3 years from the contract date or from the effective date. This is the unilateral right that the customer has to extend the contract, so the customer has maximum control here. So it's important from a supplier perspective that they are satisfied that there's an absolute maximum period of time that the customer is able to extend by, and that's to ensure that the supplier doesn't end up getting stuck in a bad deal. I hope that this introductory content is helpful for you, but if you're ready to use a law firm or to hire a lawyer, then go to our website starlitcontracts.com, where we will help you to find the lawyer that you need to address your requirements. See you there.